And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK Show, and this is going to be episode 142. And in this episode of the MSK Show, I am going to be having a conversation with content creator That Curious Cat. It's going to be her first appearance on the show. I saw her profile on Twitter, and I was like, you know what? We need some more women on the show because it's getting too much sausage around here. But as you guys know, I love men, and men always treat me very good. But I do like me some based women, actually. So we were talking for a little bit, and she was like, okay, I think this woman sounds kind of base. She's not one of those identifying as a woman kind of people because you never know what you might run into nowadays. So how are you doing, ma'am?
I'm good. How about you?
Well, I woke up. I actually woke up at like 7 my time. You wake up and you're like, okay, I'm not ready to live life right now. So you kind of are awake, still kind of sleepy. So I didn't even know I passed out. So I passed out until like 9, and I was like, okay, I probably should get up now. So I finished reading that book I was telling you I was reading, that one comic book. And then I was like, okay, I still have some more free time after I finish this. And I was like, I'll just get some more videos done that I have to put out for the channels I own, actually. So yeah, that's pretty much it. My morning time is almost over. My wife left me this morning to go see Tyrone. She said I have to pay all the bills. She said her boyfriend's going to take care of her. So that's what I have to deal with.
You know what? That's a good deal. You can't complain about that. That's a pretty decent deal.
That's true. She comes over. We don't have sex. And then she leaves in the morning for another guy. Sounds great. So
that's very unique.
So we're going to start it here. So just in case you have like a second and third appearance later on down the road, we don't got to do this again. So how was your life growing up, actually?
Growing up? Well, I'm from Canada.
Well, that's not
good.
So
I'm actually from Newfoundland, Canada, which I doubt most Americans don't know much about Canada, not to impugn your understanding of Canada.
Well, I know you guys have mooses around there and you guys kind of eat them.
Not in every province, but in Newfoundland. So Newfoundland actually was the last. So Newfoundland has 10 provinces and then some territories like up north, like, Alaska kind of way up north, very cold. And Newfoundland is an island on the furthest eastern side of Canada. So it was actually the very last province to join Canada. I think it was 1949. So there was actually a referendum at that time whether Newfoundland should join the US or Canada. And rumor has it that the U.S. actually won in the referendum, but the premier, the head of government at the time, rigged the election to make us join Canada. So really, Newfoundland could have, historically speaking, been an American state. Who knows? So I moved to Ontario from there. So that's where Toronto is, the main city that everybody kind of knows. And I've been in the UK now for 2 years. So I've kind of been hopping around all over the place. So that's really me in a nutshell. I plan to move to, my husband, we met online playing Scrabble, if you can believe this.
Okay,
he's British.
That's just an old people game. Okay. Who plays Scrabble?
Listen, I love a man that can spell. Okay. I love a man that can spell.
All right. So that means black guys are off the table then.
So it works.
Cool. Gosh,
so
man.
yeah, we met playing Scrabble online, and then we kind of did the long distance thing for 6 years, and then
wait a minute, really?
We traveled back and forth from England to Ontario, Canada, and
so you met your husband online. Like a lot of people kind of like weirdly meet their spouses now online, and you just how did you do days where you couldn't like physically look at him or talk to him?
Oh, we FaceTimed every day. Like we FaceTime. He woke me up in the morning with FaceTime. We would eat dinner together. We would lunch. Obviously there's a time difference, a 5-hour time difference, but the only time I didn't see him is when I was working, so the second I got home, we'd get on FaceTime. I'd, make dinner. We'd talk. We'd even watch movies together. We just hit, go 1, 2, 3, play at the same time. You can be pretty creative. We played Yahtzee over FaceTime. It's actually, it's funny you say that because I'm not sure long distance at this extent, like from Canada to the UK, would work without FaceTime. Like, what would we do? Write each other letters? I don't know how people did it back in the day.
Yeah, like I've, had some people that I've known in the last, 6 years that have had the same thing. One of the relationships didn't work out, but the ones that were long distance actually did. I guess it just takes real dedication, because
it does.
The biggest barrier of it generally is, how people online can be a little bit more different than when you meet them in person. Like a
Oh,
person very confident online, but in real life they could be very like reserved, like social cues, like body language, all that
yeah.
stuff. So you met your husband in real life. How was the first time actually? You
It
jumping up and
was
down?
it was it was interesting. One of the things I think I find is the first kind of that impacts you when you only know somebody on a internet medium, I guess, is the size. You can see somebody, but you don't really know how tall, you don't really understand how tall they are or what their size is or what it will feel like to hug them. That was probably the biggest, but there was nothing like jarring. It was great. We hit it off. And to what you said, you made a really good point. Oftentimes I find the internet, especially social media, people can actually be a little bit more forthcoming, or they can come across with a certain sense of bravado that they don't actually have in real life, because they have that kind of safety net of the internet. So it's almost like being drunk. You've got, alcohol
Yeah.
confidence. And then when you meet somebody in person, from there, they're shy and reserved. So it's oftentimes I more find that it tends to be the opposite. But we were both exactly who we presented. I think I'm too old. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm too old. The two of us, and he's 10 years older than me. So he's in his mid 50s.
Oh, so you were a
We're too
MILF.
old to play around. We're just who we
So
are.
you were a MILF and he was a DILF. So that's kind of how it works.
There you go. I haven't heard that one, but I'll have to tell him that. He'll find that funny.
Good
So yeah,
Lord.
that's me and my story. So since I've been to the UK, in Canada, I never did the kid thing. I did my career. So I made it to I was in the corporate world and worked my way up to the top and of corporate, asset management and securities field. And when I moved here, it was right around the COVID, and all the Western world, economically speaking, um, changed. As a lot of people, like, jobs were scarce,
Yeah.
and it's been very, very difficult since I've been here. Like, I haven't applied for a job in 20 years. I get recruited from companies, but since I've been
Yeah.
here, I probably have, and no joke, I probably have 700 resumes out since I've been here.
So there's a thing I wanted to tackle before we went into this path, which is
Yeah.
you were a woman. And so after you graduated like public school or whatever, did you go to college or anything like that?
I didn't know. My family was pretty low, middle, kind of low income, middle class. They were right on that cusp of, I don't know if it works the same in the States. But Canada and the States tend to kind of be pretty apples to apples in terms of how we function. But when you go into college or university, you can apply for loans to go to, or you can get government funding to go to university or college. Obviously, you have to pay that back. But I wasn't eligible because my parents were right on that cusp of their financial statements showed that they made just a little too much money for me to apply for government funding. So I just didn't have the money to go to college. So I had to join the workforce right away, and I just busted my ass. That's really what I did. I just busted my ass, and I'm smart. I worked my way up through different companies and ended up as director of operations for Canada.
So
the last job I had. So
like most women, I guess it's weird because depending on which generation you come from the generation that was essentially kind of like the one that I was in. So you're like in the 1980s, 1990s.
Yeah, I was born in 80.
Yeah. So when you grew up, because most women have this, you didn't want to do the whole like have kids early on thing. You just wanted to make sure you had a career first. Why did you make that decision?
I did, but I'm not sure that was necessarily a byproduct of the generation that I was in, as much as it was the result of growing up low income.
Yeah.
Right. That was my primary driver. I wanted to make sure that I had a good living and made good money, and I didn't have to rely on anybody else. And to be honest, I kind of always knew I didn't want kids. And I do blame that a little bit on societal you know, the way things are, that they made it out like women don't need to have kids. And it wasn't until the past couple of years of hitting that kind of threshold now where I can't have kids anymore. The past couple of years of really, do you remember when, what was his name? Butker? Somebody Butker, he was a football player. He did that, what was it, like 8 months ago or something? He went and spoke at like a Catholic university
Yeah.
graduation, and he said this thing about women, you know, congratulations to all the men and women in the room, to the women that are here. Some of you will go on to have careers and some of you will go on to be moms, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he was
Oh, I remember that one.
completely
Yeah.
trashed in the media. I did a video on it. I was so pissed off with how trashed he was, because I thought this is the people that were trashing him were like 20-year-old women that don't have a clue, not a single clue about what that time limit is on, because women have, there's an end date. You can't, you know, men can have kids when they're 70, you know, as long as you find a woman that can have kids. But
Because that was
for
the thing for like your parents' generation. It's like the guy typically will marry the high school sweetheart or the person that they've been basically dating since they were like in maybe elementary school. Or you
yeah.
find a girl that was a virgin, because society standards were so much different
Mhm.
back then, how people viewed each other. I'm not saying this kind of stuff like prostitution didn't happen, but it was definitely not as to the forefront as it is now, right?
Well, the
So
sexual revolution happened in the late 60s.
yeah,
And
you're right.
that's when
Yep,
birth
yep,
control kind of hit the scene. That's kind of
yeah,
when sex and love and rock and roll kind of hit the scene.
yeah,
So culturally speaking, things changed. But
yeah.
prostitution is literally the oldest
It's oldest
profession in the
job, essentially.
books.
Yeah,
It's been around forever. But in
yeah,
terms of female empowerment and sexual freedom,
yeah.
that really skyrocketed in the late 60s. And to your point, that is kind of like my parents' generation. They were a little bit before that. By the time they were in their 20s, let's say,
Yeah.
when the kind of sexual revolution hit, they were already settled down with kids.
Because
So it kind
that
of
was the
skipped
thing that
them
girls,
by.
that was like their, I'll say, I don't know if you're religious. I'm not, but I guess people kind of took it from like a religious point of view, like raise your daughter, and you prep her to be good enough to be married to a guy, and she hasn't slept with a lot of people. And people don't understand, a woman not sleeping with a lot of men, it's a little bit more attractive, to a lot of guys, and
But
they would
vice
have a
versa for men
yeah,
too. You
yeah,
know, I think that's really kind of come full circle where men kind of realize, like, I'm sorry, but I don't want a man whore. Like
hmm
no woman does.
hmm
Like, so kind of people, when they get older, they want to sow their royal oats and they want to go out and they want to have a great time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah.
having the self-respect to understand that what you're giving to another person actually has value.
Do you think it impacts women a little bit more because you guys tend to focus on a lot of like the more emotional aspects? Because I think for guys it's
Some,
different. Emotional impacts for guys come later. So I think women, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I don't know, it's just weird because women feel things differently than guys, and it's actually a good thing. We can actually like have these different ways people can look at things. Like
yeah,
you can tell like when a girl has slept with like maybe 40 dudes versus when a guy does it, the impact on her is so much different. Like the guy doesn't even know he's doing it. He's almost just mentally insanely gone. But she
yeah,
recalls every experience, and she'll maybe some of these girls, you could tell either they're so traumatized by what they did, they can't even explain to you why they did it. A guy will just be like, I was just horny. I just wanted to have sex. A girl will try to rationalize every reason why she did it, when in reality, it could be based on like things you said, upbringing, could be because of
hmm,
like societal norms. Like, because now
yeah,
societal norms are different for girls compared to when, like, I guess, your mom was growing up.
hmm,
Now the women that grow up now have to be told, oh, you could just do anything and there will be no consequences to your actions. Well, that's not good. And same thing with guys too. Oh, the
yeah,
whole birth control thing you talked about. Well,
yeah.
if women take birth control and guys know that they can't get women pregnant, or there's a chance that they can't be, well, then how does that teach them responsibility then? Guys don't know responsibility because if girls aren't on birth control either, they accidentally get pregnant, they want to get it aborted because we know that's a big thing now. Well,
Yeah.
now men aren't responsible anymore. That literally was the number one thing that almost makes men responsible, is knowing they have a kid and they have to kind of change their life.
There's definitely been, I'd say probably in the past 25, 30 years, a real societal shift in terms of the priorities of, what
Mm-hmm.
makes a man and what makes a woman kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that everybody should be boxed into the same group, but you know, nature plays a part too, right? Evolutionary, if we're talking about evolution, if you look back at orangutans and monkeys and apes, like what they were doing, like the men are just going around
Why you
and
gotta call me
doing
out
their
like that?
thing,
Oh
they're
no.
not, there's going to be a core makeup that we have that women tend to be more nurturing, more homemaking, more
Yeah,
emotionally driven, whereas men tend to be more ambitious, more
hunter driven, you could say.
impulsive, more hunter driven.
Yeah.
There are fundamental differences for the most part. That's not to say straight across the board. I don't want everybody to freak out like in the comments. I'm not saying that everybody should be painted with that same brush, but statistically speaking, and if you look at the numbers, it does speak to, there tends to be that kind of, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's been this real need to fight against those natural preconditioned norms that we as men and women have. Everybody's fighting against it and wanting to like rebel or something. And suddenly everybody's realizing, everybody needs to just calm down. It's okay. It's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be a man. There's nothing wrong with that. But some men are dicks. Some women have turned into assholes. The whole wrongfully reporting stuff for vindictive reasons. Those are more mental health things, I think, that there is a mental health crisis across the West. God knows what steered that. It's an interesting topic. There's so many different variables it's nuanced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think another big issue when it comes to like guys is like you've seen like the whole OnlyFans craze when the women make a lot of money, even though that's not even entirely true because it's just like a small percentage of the women that make a lot of money. The rest are just making almost nothing. It's like guys will say, well, why are dudes simping for these women and giving them money? But in reality, those are the same guys that are paying for it. I actually shit on guys a lot too. It's like you can't in one vein say one thing and then do another thing. That just makes you a hypocrite. Now, if you just acknowledge you're a hypocrite, I mean, I guess, at least you're not delusional. But it's one of these things where if you're trying to make honest women, then you can't be sleeping with a whole bunch of women. If that's who you proclaim to be. Because I think a lot of people proclaim to be something that they're not. I would never tell you I'm something I'm not. I would just never do that. Like I told people this, I will never tell you something unless I actually feel that certain way. Like if I had a chance to sleep with a bunch of women, sure, why not? I don't see why I wouldn't, but I wouldn't tell you that I wouldn't do it either. I would just be
no, but hang on. Haven't you heard any of those scientific studies of people, like Cosmopolitan magazine there's like a quiz in it. What kind of lover are you? Or what kind of best friend are you?
Yeah.
Studies show that most people will they will do those quizzes and they will fill it out based on the version of who they want to be, not the version of who they actually are. Studies have shown this. That everybody aspires to be a certain person, and most times people conflate the two throughout life. That's what I think finds happens when you're in your like 30s and 40s, and for some people it never happens. It takes a long time for you. It's a really difficult thing to stand in front of a mirror and truly acknowledge who you are as a person, the good, the bad, the ugly, the awful parts of you. Most people don't like to acknowledge those things. So they'll be like, no, I'm not a liar. Meanwhile, they just lied to somebody 2 hours ago. No, I'm not a cheater. Meanwhile, they cheated. Do you see what I'm saying? Most people don't want to acknowledge the truth of who they are. And until people are able to acknowledge who they truly are, they'll never be able to grow. Because how can you grow if you don't acknowledge something's broken? You know what I mean? Like how can
I think it boils down to people for just the dawn of period of time that's existed, or even just we say more recently now. People will always blame something that's not themselves. Because I always somewhat still believe this.
Right?
Yeah, like people generally like to play with this one. So the concept is you're at fault for everything that's ever happened to you. I pretty much mostly believe that, except for upbringing. You can't change how you're how you were brought up because you can't control that. But at a certain point, you can control it based off the life decisions you make. And a lot of people do this thing where they blame everything else. So, I'm pretty sure you're married now, right? You're married with your husband?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you've read statistics and probably like one of the biggest indicators of divorce is porn, right? So what I always say to people is, do you have self-control
Mhm.
Yeah, you can blame an addictive thing that's out there, but at a certain point, you are consciously always trying to seek that out.
Yeah.
At one point, it's not that that's causing the problem, that's you causing the problem. Yeah, it's easy to just blame, yeah, my marriage was over, or I lost a girlfriend because I was a drug addict or I was a porn addict. No,
Mhm.
no, you lost it because that was your decision to do that. That wasn't
Yeah.
the actual substance of it. Now, people can argue if the substance is bad, that's fine, and I would agree with those things, but you have to take some accountability for your own
Oh,
actions,
for sure. Or they'll blame their porn addiction on their wife not being
having
intimate.
sex with them. Yeah,
And I'm sorry, if your wife doesn't want to be intimate with you,
get a new
you
wife, I
need to
would
look
say.
inside, friend, because there's a reason, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not. That's one of the most frustrating things. I think we're in a new age right now where people are actually communicating and talking. Men and women are talking finally, where I think there's been
It's
this big divide. Well, I'm
yeah.
hoping. I'm forever the optimist. I'm
I
hoping.
actually agree with you. I'm actually glad it happens. I'm actually glad there's like red pilled people and a lot of other stuff happening because
Mhm.
there was a dark period where no one would talk and it all exploded around like 2016 when Trump became president, and it felt like there was a lot of clashes. But I actually agree with you. I like that these conversations are happening
Mhm,
because
me too.
people should be able to voice how they feel about stuff. Men and women should, and and you can kind of like decide. Okay, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, but you at least you can hear the conversations out. That's why
Yeah.
when people try to censor things, I just disagree with that
Yeah, me
because
too.
I want if someone's gonna say something really retarded, say it. That way I know how retarded you are. Because if you were censored, you couldn't say that and I wouldn't know how retarded you are,
Yeah,
you
it's so
know?
true. It's so true.
Mhm,
Since the whole censorship thing that's been going on for the past 4 years, really, and that's not just
mhm,
in the US, that's in Canada. Canada kind of spearheaded, to be honest. Like Trudeau is the worst Marxist authoritarian. He's terrifying, terrifying monster that we need to get rid of. And to be honest, his censorship has been well worse
mhm,
than Biden's. And it's been going on in the UK. Geez, we've got guys. There were 1,200 people in the UK that were arrested in August just passed, and a good majority of them were arrested for Facebook and Twitter posts. Can you imagine being arrested for a tweet where you're just expressing, how you feel?
yeah,
So
in the
it
UK,
whether it's an
yeah,
attack on free speech or an attack on, just censoring free speech, that's a scary time, and history books show us exactly what happens in those kind of worlds.
mhm,
It's not like we're just here for the first time. We have history books to kind of know when censorship and attacks on free speech were a part of the norm of the day. What that turned out like was not great. So I'm
mhm,
glad people are having these conversations now. And really, this incensed nature that really I find happens more on the left, because I don't really
mhm,
find a lot of people on the right that scream. They just share what they're saying, and then the left are like, "Wah!" But that's just what I've seen. Now, that's not to generalize, but all this stuff, it's great to kind of share back and forth. But unless there's nothing, not one person is right or wrong. If you can just kind of say what's what and both
mhm.
come to a conclusion on how to move forward. Right now, it's everybody's stunted by
Yeah.
needing their side to be 100% right all the time. And that's not reality. That's not reality in anything. That's
That's not
not
even
how
how you have
relationships
conversations
work.
in real life. There's
Yeah.
always going to be someone who thinks they're right. But I find it crazy in real life when I've had these conversations, people are willingly talking to each other. It's really just only on the internet where a
Yeah.
certain side is like, no, we want no level of disagreement and you are banned out of our groups or whatever if you disagree. I found it in real life. People are willing to have the conversation. There might be some crazy ones, but it
Yeah.
feels like it's reversed. Like I know there are certain controversial figures out there, and I always tell people this: they might have done some bad things. I'm not saying they didn't. But if certain things that they're talking about, those are things we should talk about. I mean, people are not going to like me mentioning this. Let's use Andrew Tate for a moment here. He's
Yeah.
probably done some really, really bad stuff. Sure. But it's what he's saying about women and men being a certain way and why it's bad. That's what you should tackle. Those are the things we should have conversations about. Do women kind of whore themselves out and then wonder kind of why when they're like 30 they don't have a husband? Are
Yeah.
guys losers beating off too much?
Hmm.
Does that have an impact? Those are conversations people should have. Now, the messenger is probably pretty controversial, but it's what they're actually saying, something that we
Yeah.
should talk about. Because most people, and what you just said, will go, no, we don't got to talk about it at all. Wait, why do we not have to talk about it? Why don't you want to talk about it? Because when people start saying certain things about what you just said, then their insecurities come out. Then they actually go, wait a minute, I actually messed up in a lot of things. or we'll use another example. You know Charlie Kirk, right? You've watched
Oh
this.
yeah.
So he'll be at college campuses and kids will walk up to him. You can tell these are Gen Z or the next gen. Oh my God, these kids are so stupid.
Oh yeah,
like,
I've watched
they're
all
like,
of his campuses.
you got white
videos.
privilege. Some of them ask him, you have white privilege. He'll ask them, what privileges do I have as a white man that a black person doesn't? They can't give you a single answer because they have none, because they were programmed throughout their entire life through being in public school to say certain things to people.
Yes, it's an indoctrination that's gone on.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I think that's the problem with like kids growing up now and people that have existed, is that they would say things in life, not get challenged on it, and then they don't know why they're thinking that. For me, I would go this. You can disagree, but at least you should understand why you think the way you do. I don't know if you've ever had that in your life before.
Yeah.
Have you ever had days like that where you've actually went into your brain and thought out the things you thought, like, why do I think this way?
Oh yeah, what's almost the etymology of where did that come from? Yes, absolutely. 100%. I've had those thoughts.
Because I feel like no one does that anymore. People just say things and they don't really realize why they feel that way. I was having a conversation with one of my friends recently. He was like, well, you're not religious. And I was like, well, I never said I was. I tell people I'm not. But he's like, then why do you care about abortion? It's not that I care a lot. It's more like I only say these certain things I've said to people. If the life of the mother's endangered, as if she's literally going to die, I feel like, she can have another kid. That's fine. Or if a person was raped or SA, but we know that those aren't the biggest numbers of that. It's mostly just
it's only 1%. It's only 1% of it's a 99%. I do totally agree with you with that. I'm pro-choice, really. Like I really am, but I think there's a big difference in the past 25 years. Pro-choice has really turned into birth control.
Yeah, that's what people have mentioned.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Not just birth control, but also economic reasons. The economy has struggled so much, where there are certain pockets of, inner cities that are actually struggling, or fathers don't stick around. So there's a problem with if you've got a single family home where they're not instilling. This is not to generalize. It's just what statistics show, right?
But you can see it.
There are other issues to why somebody would feel, I don't want to raise this child on my own. I can't afford to raise this child on my own. I have no choice. So, being as somebody that worked in the corporate world that had to manage a large number of people across an entire country, I understand that things are they're not black and white. They're much more nuanced. So there are other things. There are so many different things that contribute to an issue. Like right now, the issue with the increased abortion, in my personal opinion, is that people are laissez-faire about it and are using it as birth control. Plus the economic issues. They don't feel they can afford it. Plus the issue where they don't have confidence that the father's going to stick around. They're going to be a single parent. So how do we tackle those three things? Those are three things. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we re-educate people that this is a human inside you, to please don't use it as birth control. Birth control is available. Well, give it out for free. Give people birth control for free. If the issue, do you know what I'm saying? Like if it's becoming, people are using it as, I don't need to use birth control because I can always go get an abortion if I need to. Then
do you think it's based off of the figures that kids are looking at nowadays? Because I feel like it's not just the media. I don't want to censor media. That would be not a good thing. I feel like it's the choices of media people are looking at. So we'll use black people, for example. You know this. Black babies are the ones that are most aborted. Well, why is that?
Which is insane. And I don't understand why the government at least aren't paying attention to that. And this isn't
because I think they want that. They want single mothers on the government. I think they want that. They want you dependent on the government.
The more dependent people are on the government, the more control they have. And unfortunately, like even throughout this entire, political campaign for Trump, there are a lot of people, clearly because Trump won, but there are a lot of people that have become red-pilled, which is great, particularly in the Hispanic and Black community and young people. That's what they say. The statistics are really high, much higher than they would have ever expected, because the Black community tends to vote Democrat. And that makes sense. I mean, JFK was the one marching with Martin Luther King, pushing for civil rights. Like that's the Democratic Party. I understand that. But what people forget, it was actually the Republican Party that ended slavery. So it's funny how
don't tell people that you'll shatter their narratives. Don't do that.
Oh, but do you see what I'm saying? Like it's
tell Black people that Democratic Democratic Party were the founders of the KKK, they'll look at you like you're crazy. They'll look at you like you literally just told them some lies.
I know. Well, this is the saddest thing though, because I feel like right now those conversations are happening. Like I actually watched when RFK Jr. was he was campaigning for president as an independent. He actually went and did this 2.5 hour thing. I don't know where it was. It was maybe in Chicago and this was this amazing panel of women, and it was in a Black community. So one of the women, I think, actually was, after this event, RFK invited her to go with him because she was so amazing. And they were all talking to the Black community, and RFK was saying exactly what you just said about, that abortions are prevalent in the Black community, and the inner cities, the schools aren't getting the proper funding that they need, that banks aren't giving out loans for new businesses and for entrepreneurship in those communities. And he was acknowledging these issues, and everybody that heard it in the room was like, holy shit. But the problem, my point is, that's only one room. RFK was censored everywhere. Nobody was listening. That wasn't a mass message that was going out to everybody. And I just wish that all of the US, not just the Black community, not just the white community or the Hispanic community, but everybody could hear the truth sometimes, rather than political spin that will keep these parties in power.
Or just to tackle to your point, they let their feelings override the actual truth of a situation. This is what I always say. Someone can feel a certain way about something, but that doesn't negate the truth. That doesn't negate objective reality.
Yeah, it's like, not meant to offend. It's just
it's to point that it's meant to put the situation in a perspective that this is what's going on. So as you say, why does it happen with Black people? Well, we'll have to go down that road. I think in the Black community, I've just seen it for myself,
Yeah, tell me. I'd love to hear.
I'll ask you, maybe your experience with Black people is different from Canada. Pretty sure Canadians up there are a little bit more, Black people are a little bit more wealthier up there in Canada. Do you think in the Black community, it's an acceptable standard if the guy stays around in the Black community? Do you feel that's a sentiment? Because I don't feel like it.
What do you mean acceptable? Do I think that's the norm? Is that what you're asking? Or
in general, how would I say this? Do you think just for the Black community, it's a thing that it's like if you have sex with a girl and she gets pregnant, that guy needs to stick around? I don't feel like that's a sentiment. I think Black women are
absolutely
banging guys, and then they're okay with the guy not being there. I think that's a problem right there, because it doesn't create strong households. It doesn't create a strong family dynamic. The reason why a lot of these Black kids end up being the way they are, I'm not saying that absolves them of their bad actions, they don't have a father figure around.
Yeah, they're single family homes.
There's and as you know, now with just white people and Mexican, all of them, the media tells women, no, you're a single mom, you can do whatever you want, you have no issues. That's the problem too.
Well, the benefits that they provide, that not for everybody, but they also make it convenient sometimes for a single mom to not feel the need to work harder to keep that relationship going either. Because there are extra benefits if you're a single parent. There's so many things that are wrong. It's so nuanced.
Role models.
There's no one
problem.
Yeah. It's a repetitive cycle, right? Yeah. Like if you've got a 20-year-old that gets a woman pregnant and he's like, yeah, check you later. I don't need to stick around. He probably didn't grow up with a dad.
Yeah.
So it's just a vicious cycle that keeps going and going. And they're not, and this isn't, I don't want to say that this is not solely in any particular community of people. It really is kind of pervasive everywhere. Like, look at how high divorce is. Like the sanctity of marriage, or the sanctity or understanding the importance of having a mom and a dad in a home to raise children has kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit.
So on that one, from what I've been looking into as much as I can, a lot of the younger guys don't want to get married because, from what I've been just looking into, just as far as like questions, I was just typing in the line sometimes to kind of see what people are talking about. They mostly feel like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like, let's say I'm a guy and I do everything. What is the girl bringing to the table? Because that's a big conversation. I was like, guys are asking, what is the girl bringing to the table if I'm paying for everything and I have to make sure her?
That's just bad choice.
You think so?
That's just bad choice of partner.
Okay.
Because I bring a lot to the table.
A lot of sass too.
That's just a bad choice of partner, right? Like I've made more money than every man I've been with, which isn't many, but
Well, you know the crazy part about that is that if a guy, not your husband now, but you know when you were, I guess you say dating. See, the other thing is if you have a great job and I have a great job, but I'm dating you, I don't have access to your money though. But like girls will feel like they have access to the guy's money. You see the difference there?
Choice. I've never felt that.
Really? Okay.
I don't know a single woman.
And again, you are like pretty well off, so you would never.
No, I'm medium, just regular, like middle class. I'm not like rich or anything, just comfortable. And most of my female friends and female family members, and I have a lot.
Yeah.
They don't view that either. You know, they don't lean on their part. They don't feel like they have access to their partners. I don't. So I think it comes down to choice. So if that is the perspective or experience that you've had or your friends have had with girls, then I think maybe broadening the search.
I think it comes down to like, you could say, well, not gold diggers, I would say, but it's like, as a man, I always, this thing, I don't even agree with that perspective. I'm just saying what the perspective might be. I don't care if a girl has a job. I really don't care. Because for me personally, you can have your own money. You're independently free on your own. You don't have to ask me for anything. Honestly, that's actually an attractive thing to me that a girl has a job. The thing is, I always tell guys going to it, you shouldn't expect her to get, you're a dude. It's part of our life to make money and get our own things. What do you want her to give you money? I don't see that. You're a man, make your own money. That's how I feel about it personally, you know? But like you said before, I would say, do you think women should prioritize career first and then have family, or let's say just go for the full family thing?
I think it's different for everyone. You know, I have girlfriends that all they wanted to do, my sister, all she wanted to do was be a mom. Now, mind you, she did, you know, go to college, you know, took a trade course and went into the workforce and had a career, but it wasn't, you know, comparatively speaking, I was in the corporate world going all the way up, whereas she just got a career and stayed there and had a baby, and she made a good living and her husband made a good living with dual income, and they were great. Like her priority was being a soccer mom to drive the kids to right. And that's her jam, and that's great. And I have a lot of friends like that. But then I have friends like myself that never had kids. Now I have regrets about that, but I have friends that don't regret that. So I have friends that are, you know, 50 and they have a different kind of life, right? They can fly to, you know, they don't have to worry about getting a babysitter or going any, you know, they can do whatever they want. They don't have to deal with, they can go decide on a whim impulsively to go on a cruise for 3 weeks or whatever they want to do, you know.
There's the other thing with marriage that is also brought up is the divorce thing. Not just divorce. It's the fact that in courts here in America, as you've probably seen, women kind of take everything, as like the courts are mostly geared towards women. So you're a guy, you build up all this wealth for yourself, you get married, you feel like you really found the right girl. Come to find out, you know, maybe she was on birth control and a lot, and maybe when she's off that, she doesn't look at you the same way, or you have some problems and you divorce and she takes everything from you. Now just child support, alimony. It's like, is that worth it? That big of a risk? I mean, you know,
well, I think what's worth it is to try and make it work.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago. And I was married before this, so I'm divorced.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. As is my partner now. He was married. He was, you know, with somebody for 25 years. So I'm not the same person now that I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years. You know, we all are continuously evolving as people and changing. So what was, you know, I always view relationships. I've said this to so many people. I view relationships like if somebody were to say to you, what's your ideal woman? In my mind, when I think of that question, like, what is my ideal man? Or for you, what's your ideal woman? I always think of it in terms of 10 boxes of categories. You know, and you'll kind of put them in kind of order of priority, right? But there's 10 boxes. And a really good match is going to check off about 7 of those 10. That's going to be a really good match. But the problem is, as you grow and evolve as a person, so if you hit fast forward 5 years, those boxes that hit the top 5 may not be the most important boxes to you anymore because you've changed. So maybe some of those boxes might fall off your 10 list and a couple more might add, and then your partner doesn't hit those. And it's not to say that your partner can't hit those.
Mm-hmm.
All it means is that you have to have open communication with your partner as, you know what, I used to really like this about you, and now I really struggle with this about you. And if we're going to make this work,
Yeah.
we're going to have to figure that out and either go to therapy or talk to friends, family, or pastor, or if you're, you know, if you're a religious person, whatever that is. But you've got to, people need to try to tough it out more. I mean, look, man, when my parents were young, their divorce never happened. You know, people would have like huge fights and they'd still stick it out and be married for 60 years, you know. And if you were to talk to them when they're in their 80s, it was the best thing they ever did.
Yeah.
Was staying with their, right? So there's merit in that. There's going to be tumultuous events that happen in every relationship, and that's just owing to us changing and evolving as people, and just shit happens in life. And if people can't figure out how to get through that, then how can we figure out how to get through anything in life?
Yeah, I agree. Because
right?
the thing to tackle onto your point is people just don't know how to get through hard times anymore. They feel like, I don't know, it feels like now when you talk to people about having hard times, they're like, wait, I have to have some hard times in life? Well, yeah. Honestly, I've come to the realization in life, having hard times is a lot more interesting than if your life was boring, as if like your parents were rich enough and you had to struggle for nothing. I feel like with no struggles, life would just be boring as hell, honestly. And I feel like it actually makes you a better person going through said struggles when you actually do get to have them. I'm saying if you're more wealthy, you don't have any struggles. Obviously, it's way harder at that level. But I was trying to think about this concept a few weeks ago. I was like, man, if I went through no struggles, like if I was born rich, I'd be bored. I would just be like, what's the point of life? You know, there's no problems, you know? But everyone now,
I totally agree.
Like everyone now just feels like, oh man, I'm gonna have to struggle. Yeah. First time, like what the hell?
You know what? It's struggle. It's those contrast of feelings that help us understand what, like you how can we know what happiness is unless we've experienced unhappiness?
Yeah.
Right? How can we appreciate do you know what I mean? How can we know what achievement is unless we understand what failure is? You know, these things aren't a bad thing. They might be cruddy when you're in the moment, but they'll actually be pretty damn sweet when you hit that moment where, you know, you can fail and fail and fail. But if you get up and you try again and you achieve something, man, that sense of accomplishment is so amazing. And how could we know what that felt like if we didn't understand the reverse of it? So people need to not be so afraid. I think you're making a really great point. People are pretty afraid.
I was watching a Facebook reel of something that someone said, and he said this line. I think a lot of people don't even do this anymore. He said, when was the last time you actually tried something? Like you actually gave your best. Like in your mind, you were so physically tired, you gave your best. And I was like, damn, huh. A lot of people don't do that anymore. They don't actually give their best anymore. You don't feel like you're getting the best out of that person. You feel like they're cheating themselves. Like in sports, when sometimes you watch sports, like back in the day, there's a reason why people like Kobe Bryant and like Shaquille and Michael Jordan are celebrated, because you really felt like when you're watching them, they gave their best, you know?
Do you want me to tell you my theory on why that is?
Sure.
I think the issue was about 20 years ago when everybody got a participation ribbon.
Oh, I know that period. Yep. They just passed
well, that's
you in
still
school.
Going.
Yeah,
that's still going. So why would anybody feel the need to try to push themselves or excel further?
Like
they don't need to. They're going to get a ribbon no matter what.
Yeah.
So like that, you know, psychologically, that's going to happen.
Right? Yeah, I think that fear of failure puts you in a position of like, what's saying, fight or flight. You have to make sure this happens. Like you and your husband, you realize at a single point, if you don't make it happen, well, you're homeless. That's it. That's it. Makes you drive to get better, makes you want to make sure that things are done, you know, being in that position. Absolutely. Like for me, I live alone. I don't have a wife or anything. Wives, that's overrated. That's a 1980s thing, you know? Like if I start failing, it's over. I will be homeless. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it pushes you to want to be your best self for sure. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
The other thing you said earlier in the show that you wanted to cover on this one was the censorship thing. So I remember you told me that if you're a certain leaning person, you'll be censored in the media. And you know what we were told years ago? It's not happening. You're a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Your opinion's not the more popular one. It's our opinion that's more popular. Yeah, it's crazy as you guys see this as it happens. So when Elon Musk bought Twitter, people forget this because this happened a while ago, the whole Twitter files thing. Twitter was literally bought and paid for by the government to specifically censor stuff, as if like not even just they delete your tweets, they would make sure you are algorithmically pushed down so people don't see your stuff.
Well, you know what they did. So the U.S. it's not the Constitution, but there's a law that's in place, and don't quote me on it. If somebody's watching, they can look it up. But it's something like it's a protection that's in place for social media, particularly large social media accounts. It's like Bill 26 or something. I'm making this up. It's something, I think it's got a 6 in it. So anyways, this protection, what this does for social media accounts is it provides a platform like Facebook, for example. It protects them from being sued by somebody upset with what another person has posted on Facebook. It prevents them from suing Facebook.
Yeah.
Because Facebook is just the platform. You can sue the individual that posted it, but you can't sue Facebook. So there is a protection in place under the US law that covers X or Twitter at the time, Facebook, Instagram. Under the Joe Biden administration, what they did was they actually went to those social media providers and threatened to remove that protection, which would destroy social media. If you don't censor X, Y, and Z, we are going to remove your protection under the law, which will open you up to millions of potential lawsuits and will bankrupt your company and you won't exist anymore. That is essentially what happened.
We know it
from
happened.
What I
recently,
understand. That's
Mark
what
Zuckerberg
happened.
came out and he even said that what they were doing, even though people have eyes and ears, they can see stuff, but they will tell you it's not happening, even though years later it'll be revealed that is exactly what they're doing. Guys, why did Mark Zuckerberg come out? No, ghetto. It's crazy. This man's a billionaire. He did a video, like a YouTube short. Production was terrible, and he basically went, "Yeah, we were censoring people. Yeah. We kind of treated people like shit, but we're sorry. It's okay. Yeah. Come back. We forget." But we were told years ago it wasn't happening.
I'm a little bit more forgiving because I understand the magnitude of the government threatening to remove that protection. Yeah. I understand that is survival is what that is. That's Mark Zuckerberg. Like, holy shit. If the government is threatening to remove this and they have the power to do it, I have no business. It's gone. So, and there was a lot of gray areas too. At that time, we didn't really know it was the peak of COVID. At that time, we kind of trusted the FBI and what the FBI said about, like the Hunter Biden laptop. People kind of had a certain level of trust in our federal institutions. So even he was like, well, I'm not censoring anything maybe it is false. I could understand. I'm a little bit more forgiving. However, I think he should have, what he said on Joe Rogan that day, when he came out and was honest and said that yes, he was censored. I think it should have happened a hell of a lot before Joe Rogan episode. It should have happened a year ago. It should have happened 2 years ago when Trump was campaigning, when he was talking about free speech, or when RFK was talking about free speech. He should have come out to the public and said, you know what? Actually, when it should have happened? It should have happened the day that everybody understood that Fauci's made up shit about COVID wasn't real. And he was told to censor COVID stuff. And the day he found out that what he was told to censor was actually legit and not misinformation is the day that he should have come out with a public statement and said, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it was a little too late that he came out, but I'm not like angry at him.
Or do you think this is the fact that Trump won that made him say all this stuff? Because if Kamala Harris had won, is he singing a different tune? I don't know.
I don't know if he would have been able to sing a different tune.
It's true.
Because the threat of removing that protection would still be in place. Right? Now, like, I don't know what Mark Zuckerberg's net worth is, but
probably a lot.
Elon Musk is the richest man in the world and has the funds and the economic backing to be able to do that to the government, whether they remove those protections or not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that gave Elon a sense of bravado that he's got that much money in his bank account that he can actually take on the government. Maybe. Because if you recall, at that time, Like, what was this? 2021, Elon bought Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't endorse Trump until 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3 years where he's not like leaning on the back of Trump's campaign of
Yeah.
pushing for free speech, right? So as far as he was concerned, it could have gone the other way with Kamala. He wasn't really telling the public who he was voting for, but he has been registered as a Democrat for his entire adult life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anybody at a guess prior to him endorsing Trump would have probably assumed that he was going to endorse Kamala, but I don't know.
I think
It's
people's
interesting.
eyes just got more opened recently.
Yeah.
Because you know what's crazy? Do you think the average person doesn't care about politics all that much? Because you've seen the stats too. Voting has increased in years. Average
Oh, for
person really
sure.
doesn't give a fuck, honestly, about
Yeah.
politics, if we're being honest here. But now
You
it
know
felt like
what?
with the last 3 elections from 2016 to 2020, now it really
Mhm.
feels like people are more in the know now because the recent Kamala Harris Donald Trump election, guys, she got blown out so hard. I have
Oh, yeah, it
never
was a
seen someone lose
landslide.
no swing states. That's
No.
incredible. Has that ever
Yeah.
happened? I'm pretty sure it's never happened.
Well, Trump didn't just win, the majority, the electoral vote. He won the
Yeah.
popular vote, and that hasn't happened in over 20 years. And he also won the Senate, which is unbelievable. Like it's a real signal that Trump has a mandate that the American people expect. And I'm not entirely surprised by it. This is how I view, like, I've dabbled in politics for 20 years, just owing to the business I've been in. What's going on in politics can impact what happens in industry. But it hasn't been like extreme, it's just subtle. And to be perfectly honest, typically Western, at least Canada and the US, because we kind of are pretty similar to each other, like in terms of how we operate, our people, our what's important to us, that type of thing. Government is mostly just a little left of center and a little right of center. And really, it's same shit, different day. It doesn't matter. Look at how many Republican presidents you guys have had, how many Democratic presidents you've had, back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't matter. It's same shit, different day. There might be some minor changes to things, but there haven't really been drastic, impactful experiences for the people. And the exact same thing has happened in Canada. It doesn't matter if it's conservative or a liberal, because that's, a liberal is your Democrat and a conservative is your Republican in Canada. It's exactly the same. It goes back and forth, doesn't matter. And suddenly, since Trump, since 2016, suddenly that scale went from just left of center to all the way over here. So far left that they're leaning on socialism and Marxist tendencies, which are terrifying because both are scary, right? Like the left, if the left goes too far, they're socialists, communists, Marxists. If the right goes too far, they're fascists.
Yeah.
Neither are good. I mean, we all read Animal Farm in school, right? Like we all know about Stalin and like we all know these stories about what fascism and communism and what the far right and what the far left look like. We have enough history books to know that too far left and too far right is a disaster.
Do you think more people are moderate then?
Pardon?
Do you think more people are just moderate, like they're in the center?
Yeah, most people are pretty close to the center, and they might actually travel back and forth on some policies. They might be like, yeah, I'm a bit left on this, and I'm a bit right on this, and that's okay, because when the government has only been a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, if you lost some of the things you wanted, you got enough of the things you wanted that you were fine, because they were so kind of intertwined with each other, and it was okay. And I think it's actually a healthy democratic government for somebody to be a little bit left of center and right of center, because they can keep each other in check. But what's happened in the past 5 years, for sure, and it really started happening in Canada more before it happened in the US. I have voted liberal my entire adult life. My family has voted liberal, which is Democrat. My family has voted liberal. My grandparents voted liberal. Like as far back as I know, we are liberal people. I never in a million years would have thought I would vote conservative, which is Republican. But the problem is I didn't leave the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party literally left me because they've gone so far left that they're skiing up in Timbuktu. And I don't know what is going on. They're lunatics. The stuff that's happening is completely absent of normal common sense shit, that it's terrifying, and somebody needed to rein them in. And what you're seeing online is not the mass populace of people, not in Canada, not in the US. It's this fringe, and that fringe are really loud and they love to yell and scream. So that's all we see on social media is this fringe, and it's easy to make that misconception that that fringe is the majority, but it's not. And you guys saw that in November. Canada is going to see that in our election in October. It will literally be the exact same landslide. The UK, oh my God, it's every country. You know, you've got Germany, you've got Holland, France, Italy, all of these European countries. It is the exact same thing. The left went too far left. And I think it was just like a boilerplate of most of these Western countries were all suddenly on the left. So they all kind of fed off each other. I don't know. I'm speculating.
Because you had said you voted liberal most of your life. So when Donald Trump came in to fruition, when his presidency back in 2016, did you hate him like a lot of other people did?
Oh, I thought he was nuts. I thought he was absolutely nuts. Now, obviously, I grew up watching Donald Trump, so I know who Donald Trump is. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Like, New York is one of our favorite cities. It's only a 7-hour drive from where I lived. So, you know, you'd often cross the border and go to New York. You know, everybody knows who Trump is. I was kind of intrigued because I often think that politics sucks. The government sucks because it's full of politicians. And politicians are fake sometimes. And whereas I always, working in the business world, I was intrigued with Trump because I thought, you know what, this might be really interesting because it wouldn't hurt for the government to have an actual businessman in there that isn't a politician. And I think that's actually what kind of shocked people so much, was that he wasn't polished like a politician. He just spoke like a regular dude.
He kind of pulled the curtain behind the rug. No, not you.
I thought you were saying you couldn't hear me.
No, this is a thing that happened in The Wizard of Oz when the characters pulled the curtain behind the rug, and they saw that the wizard that they like thought was so powerful was just it was all smoke and mirrors. When he talked to Hillary Clinton the way he did, and he exposed just how much of a hypocritical pieces of shit they are. Like, if people don't remember, the big thing people didn't like about him, which was so stupid, which was they talked about this little tax thing, this whole tax evasion thing. When he pointed out, when we were having a debate, that she uses the exact same shit that he did, people were like, well, you're going to vilify me. I think he mentioned something along the lines of like, you're going to vilify me for using it, but she uses it too, and all her friends use it. So why am I the problem? Right there, it shows you how big of hypocrites and how bought and paid for the media is. The media will sell you lies that he does all these, this, that, and the third, but they'll never tell you this, that, and the third about the other people. Like, basically goes on. Barack Obama, angel. Trump, devil. People do know that Barack Obama deported a lot of more illegals than Trump is now eventually going to.
10 million people.
Some without even criminal charges. Some that were basically like what people said were like, well, if they don't have criminal charges, why do they have to leave? Obama did that without criminal charges, even though they were here illegally. They didn't do anything. He got rid of them. So
Clinton deported 10 million. Obama deported 5.2 million. Biden deported 3.6 million. And Trump, from 2016 to 2020, deported 1 million. Now, there's a reason he only deported 1 million, because he built the damn wall and he got the border under control. So there were less people that came over. So he only had to deport 1 million.
And the reason why it kind of spiked up.
Him, the way my process of having moved to the UK, and suddenly I'm not working. So I've got all this time, and I watch the House of Commons every day. I watch the Senate every day in all countries. The US.
Did you like Canada, the AOC one?
I watched the whole thing, 2-3 hours long. I watched the whole thing.
You're crazy, man.
Well, I got to fill my time, and it interests me. So all of a sudden, what happened to me about 2 years ago was I was sitting down and I was watching like an interview. I think it was with Trump, and it was like an hour and a half long. And a video that was clipped out of that has been aired on the news for like 5 years, that he said something. And I watched this, no joke. I literally was like this. I couldn't believe what I just watched, because everything that was on that interview was nothing like how they depicted it on the news. And I can't even describe to you the feeling of betrayal that I felt from an institution of legacy media that I trusted, from government officials that I trusted, from federal agencies that I trusted. It felt like the biggest betrayal. I can't even describe it to you. And that was just once. So I thought, well, hopefully that was a one-off, because that sucked. And they've been lying about this whole time. But then, of course, it opened me up to wanting to dive into everything I'd heard about Trump. Every bad thing that Trump said, I then wanted to go back and watch the full press conference. And I did that. And I couldn't believe how much they lied about him. The fact that he's still here and he came back and fought a second time shocks me. It shows his resilience as a person, because, man, they attacked him so bad and so unfairly. It's insidious. It's almost evil to me what they did. And it wasn't just with Trump, it was with RFK. You know, RFK wanted to run for president. He put himself forward as a candidate, Robert F. Kennedy
You did.
Jr.
Remember that, yeah.
He put himself forward as a candidate. He's a Democrat. I mean, he is the Democrat. His father's Robert F. Kennedy, and his dad, his uncle is
crazy,
JFK.
right?
Come on. So
Like
he
father,
puts
like
himself
son.
forward for president and wants to be a part of the Democratic primary with going up against Joe Biden. They canceled the primaries so that he couldn't run against Biden.
And they picked someone who wasn't even popular when
no, this is
she ran
before
for
Joe
a primary.
Biden. This is before Joe Biden stepped down.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they knew that if RFK went into a primary up against Joe Biden, he would lose. RFK would have won. Without a doubt, RFK
But didn't they do that
won.
before? I remember this happened with Bernie Sanders too. He was polling better
he
than
was
Hillary,
the
but
most.
they put Hillary over him.
Yeah, he was the most popular vote, but he was an
Right.
independent out of Vermont, which is fine. He was an independent, and they literally kicked him out and gave it to Hillary, which is the most undemocratic thing you can think of. They canceled the primaries. They didn't put it out to the people. Like, all of the Democrats across the United States lost their ability to vote for who they wanted to run for president. That is removing democracy from the American people. They did that with Joe Biden. Then they kicked Joe Biden out and just put Kamala in with no primary again. And then they blame Trump of being a threat to democracy. They're literally the biggest threat to democracy I've ever seen. And the way they spin it, and all of the legacy media, NBC, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, which is a nut bar channel, and The View. Oh my God, these people are sick in the head. They are sick individuals.
I love watching the clips. Or there was one today, I don't know if you've seen it. It was by one of the Definite Elf channels, where he put out the one light-skinned lady, Sunny, said that
Sunny
illegals, like, she was trying to basically make the argument that being an illegal in the country is not breaking the law. People understand, you cannot enter the country illegally. Just because the Democrat people made it a good thing that you could enter illegally does not mean you're not breaking law. The new borders are, I forgot his name, but he mentioned, the code he mentioned. You can literally look it up right now. I'm not shitting. You cannot enter America illegally, even though these people throughout, ever since I've been alive, have been being like, well, America, was founded by immigrants. You guys can come in. No,
of course it is. The ones that apply to come. And speaking as somebody that is living in the UK, that had to spend a year waiting for my application to go through, to get my fingerprints done, to go through biometrics, to have a sponsor, to provide my my credit score, my employment history. I had to full on apply to come to the UK. Of course I would. It's a different country. They want me to live here. Of course I have to apply. Yes, all the Western world was built on immigration, and it will continue to be built on immigration. Immigration will continue to happen, but it needs to happen the right way by people that actually apply.
And that doesn't even mean that people have to understand back then was immigration and the settlers that were here, but that doesn't mean you just have horrible laws. People think because America was founded on certain things, that means that for just the dawn of time, you just have to have the most dog shit laws. It's like, no, that's not how time evolved. It's not, because Democrats, as you say, don't they believe that throughout time things should progress and change,
Yes. Yeah.
or as like
Well,
conservatives
they
kind of
used
believe that
to,
thing.
but again,
Yeah,
they've gone so far left that
yeah.
they've lost their value, their core values. They just don't have them anymore. The things that the Democratic Party used to um, represent are so far removed from the Democratic Party today.
Hmm.
It really is. And there needs to be the sad thing is that I find that the right is still right of center. I don't find they've gone too far right, the same as the left
Hmm.
has gone too far left. But I say us because I've moved now because
Yeah,
the left are nut bars. So I'm right of center now. But I'm not far right. I'm still just right of center because I
yeah.
still have, left of center values that are important to me. So this whole, the fact that the way that they muddy the waters so much and they disparage people, and you still see the legacy media doing it. Like
They don't even know why
Trump
they
won
lost.
in
They're
a
still doing.
landslide, guys.
Yeah.
Get your shit together. What are you even spewing on the news? They're all like
Hmm.
talking about this garbage. Like, and you know what? Keep talking about it because you'll just keep losing. In 4 years, it'll be JD Vance.
Or
And
yeah.
4 years after that, it'll probably be Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, you just keep doing it. Keep talking the way, and
Hmm.
CNN has terminated so many of their journalists. MSNBC, same thing. ABC, the legacy media is dead. The independent journalists, and I don't know if you saw, what was her name? I can't remember her name now. Karine Levitt, or the new press secretary for Trump. She did her first press secretary
Oh,
thing at the White House the other day.
I saw some highlights of it. The one that really stuck out was that basically the Trump administration did not like how the mainstream media were portraying them in the news. So she even said, "Hey, you guys have kind of like lost." Basically, she
Mhm.
said, "You guys are lost in the sauce. You guys have lost the plot. We're going to invite independent podcasters and
Yeah.
influencers for the White House." That's huge.
Yeah.
That's big,
Plus,
actually.
return 400 press passes to people that the Biden administration pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine what do you
Now it's
think
your turn to
made up
go. You
that
got to go to the White
400
House.
press passes?
You have to go to the White House now. That's your turn now.
You know what? If I was closer, I would apply because I cover politics so much. If I was closer, I probably would. But I would bet a big number of those 400 press passes that were removed were probably Republican leaning because the only Republican legacy media is Fox.
Yeah, and even when
All
that
the
one
others are
white
left.
do you remember when that one white guy, I forgot his name, was asking that one black lady questions, and all she would tell him is that your questions are just misinformation and
Oh,
disinformation?
Karine
It's like,
Jean-Pierre.
yeah, it's like,
He
what the
was
hell?
embarrassing. I really struggled to watch. I really struggled to watch.
Why do
Yeah.
they, you know what's crazy with left people? Why do they assume that people that just like Trump only watch Fox News? I don't watch Fox News. There's one guy there that is kind of cool to listen to, but that's it. After Tucker Carlson
I don't
left,
really
who else is
watch
there to
any
listen?
legacy media,
Me
to be
neither.
honest.
Unless it's like clips, unless it's like reels or YouTube shorts, maybe
Mhm.
that's about my extension. Because like your mom and dad's age, that is their viewership. Their viewership
Yeah.
is tanked over the years because why would you want your kid watching CNN, MSNBC, KTLA5, ABC, any of that stuff? First of all, the kids these days aren't as interested in the news like they used to be, and they get their
No,
news, even if
because
they
it's
do,
force
from
fed.
yeah, and they'll just get their news from like podcasters or content creators. That's their
Mhm.
media. That's or
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're
Like
attacking the wrong demographic.
I watch Megyn Kelly every day. I
Mhm.
watch Dave Rubin every day. Ben Shapiro,
Okay, I have to ask you this about
Charlie
Megyn
Kirk.
Kelly, not Megyn Kelly. So there's certain conservatives that have this opinion. I don't know if you do. What do you think about guys that play video games? Because some of them believe if you play video games, you're like a loser. You can't amount to anything. Have you had experience with guys that were like obsessed with video
I
games?
grew up with guys playing video games, but there's a
Oh, you know,
difference.
okay.
This is it. Like, I was playing video games, but there's a difference between playing video games and excessively playing video games. And unfortunately, I have a lot of opinions about the culture of young men these days, which I think is a big part of why so many young men voted for Trump, because men have lost their way and don't really know how to be men anymore because all they're told is they're toxic for their masculinity. And feminism has gone too far. Like, I've never really been a feminist. I'm an equalist. I agree with equal pay for women and equal rights for women, but I don't necessarily I like a man saying you look nice and opening a door for me and
Mhm.
buying me flowers. Like I feel like
That
feminism
equal
kind of
pay
went
stuff
too
is,
far.
oh God, man. Yeah, that equal pay stuff is such a myth, man. It's so, when you break it down, it makes sense why certain women make less money. It's not even the fact
Well,
that
of course
employers pay
of
them less,
course.
you know? It's
There
but
are
the way
reasons.
the
It's
media spins
nuanced.
it. Yeah, the way the media spins it's like, oh my God, women are being treated like such shit. But it's like, if you, I challenge you, go and look into it. I'm going to go into that right now. It's just a complete myth. It's literally the most easily explained thing ever. But they made it like it was this big giant thing. It's not. It's very simple. That's the reason why.
It's really hard to measure apples to apples when,
Yeah.
and not to, there's nothing wrong with it. It's
Mhm.
well within every woman's right to go on maternity leave and to have a
Yeah.
baby and then to come back to work. But it's very difficult to measure apples to apples of two people, a man and a woman, making the same pay when one leaves the job and then comes back to the job. I'm in a different situation. I never had kids. And what I can tell you is I made the same amount of money. In fact, sometimes a little bit more because I was better at the job than my male counterpart. So I never went on mat leave. I never left. I moved through the company. I worked the same amount that the guy next to me did. And I've never really had issues with disparaging pay. So there's going to be nuances with, if you've got, like in Canada, mat leave is for 12 months. So if you're pregnant and you go on mat leave and you leave the business for 12 months, that guy that you might have started with, that you guys make the same pay, he's now got 12 months more than you in the business, learning experience, growth with the company. And that's not to punish you for going on mat leave, but it's just a reality. And most people, if they're realistic, like that wouldn't bother me. That I wouldn't be upset by
Or
that.
the other argument that people don't see in the pay gap is men typically, from what I've read, work longer hours. So that would just automatically make they would just by definition make more money if you work longer hours. They do the jobs that pay the most, but it's like kind of grindstone jobs like pouring cement, construction, really just crazy mechanical jobs. Women aren't doing that shit. They just aren't, because women aren't really, physically able to do those
Yeah,
jobs.
sometimes I think it's going to be nuanced, really.
Yeah,
Like,
but I understand why a woman, you wouldn't want to be pouring cement, would you?
no,
Cement takes away
hell no. I don't want to be in
cement
the
bags.
military either. I don't want to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
crawling on the
Have you held a
dirt and
cement bag?
dealing with killing
Have-
people. And
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying that I have issues with women in the military. If that's your jam, go for you, do you.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that. I don't want to, man, I have in my house, I joke with my husband, that's a blue job. Like, I don't do the garbage. That's a blue job. I don't do that. And it's a joke, like I'm being funny and we're being satirical, but sincerely, I don't want to do the garbage. That's a dude job. Go do the garbage. I don't clean the toilet because your poop is messier than girls. So I don't do
Mhm,
the toilet, but I'll do the shower and the sink. We
mhm.
kind of split the roles.
Now he needs to poop in the shower. There you go. At that point, you might need to get a new husband. At that point, you're like, okay, that's where I gotta draw the line at.
It's funny.
No, but it's crazy how certain things that are easily explained, if you just kind of point out to the reasons why X factor happens, it makes them not sound as complicated. But the media doesn't do that. They want to make it sound like women are just vilified for everything. They even say like, well, women have had it really hard in life. Hasn't men
Yeah.
too? War? Like
Yeah.
literally war.
Listen,
Probably...
war, men have gone to war and died to protect us. Like,
like, is that an
I just think
equal,
everybody needs to calm down. That's what I think. Everybody just makes a big deal out of everything.
Yeah.
And I think everybody just needs to take a step back and chill the F out, because it's not that, it doesn't have to be that big of an issue. And the more people make things big issues, the less progress happens.
That's
because
true.
Everybody's just fighting about the big issue instead of like, well, this is a real actual, we need a solution here. So what are we going to do? And if everybody's like, well, my issue is bigger than your issue, no solution is going to come of that. It's ridiculous.
So, as people know, since we're on YouTube, I have to kind of say words a certain way. This is what YouTube wants, because I fucking hate these people sometimes. Yes. What do you think about Trump doing the whole, now you can only recognize two genders?
Well, there is only two genders.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, that's just basic biology. And you know what? This is one of the things that ticks me off. Biology is not bigotry. It's just biology. Like, I have no issues. Listen, I have family that are transgender, and they live their life, and they've new name, and whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy. But they are still the sex that they were born as.
Yeah.
If a man wants to live as a woman, wants to wear a dress, wants to wear a wig and makeup, be called Lucy, sure, no problem. But you're still a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just living as a woman, and vice versa. And when men should not be competing in women's sports at all, because their biology makes them more advantaged. They're taller, stronger, faster, all of those things. And if we're, right now it's not an issue because it's only here and there. But imagine fast forward 50, nobody thinks about foresight or long-term vision. Fast forward 50 years. The women's swimming team will literally be all transgender women. Because they'll swim out, they'll outperform every female in 50 years. So there has to be some, it's insane. I don't want to go into a bathroom and wee with a man in there. It's just insanity.
As you say that, it's weird how this kind of party is the party that say they want to protect women and they want women to have all these virtues and rights. But they'll tell them they have to go to the bathroom with the man in there.
Yeah.
How's that protecting them?
It's the most egregious form of gaslighting that I've ever experienced in my life. That you say that you want to protect women's rights, but you are systematically stripping women of their rights. Like Title IX was written by Ted, put in place with the US government by Ted Kennedy, RFK's uncle, JFK's brother, and it was specifically put in the US Constitution to protect women's rights, to protect based on sex, right? So it allowed for, because back in the day, if you remember, there were no women's bathrooms in corporate buildings because women weren't really employed, right? There weren't women's basketball teams or swimming teams. So it really protected, it gave the right for women to have private female spaces as well as male private spaces. It didn't just make it one or the other. It gave both sexes protection under the law. And what Joe Biden did, which was reversed actually by the Supreme Court because it was unconstitutional what Joe Biden did, he actually just decided with the flick of his pen that he was going to change Title IX. And this was about a year ago, to change Title IX to not protect based on the basis of sex, but to protect based on the basis of gender. Now, apparently, according to the left right now, there's about 2,024 genders right now.
Even though they can't tell you what they are.
Right? So if you remove based on the basis of sex, which is male and female, and it's now based on the basis of gender, suddenly women's rights are gone. The Democrats literally, Joe Biden literally, with the stroke of his pen, changed Title IX. And the Supreme Court, it went to the Supreme Court and they were like, bruh, you can't do that. You can't just change the law because you choose to change the law. And thankfully it was upheld, but that was only 2 weeks ago, I think. Last week, it was upheld. So thankfully Title IX is still in place. It still protects women. There are women in prisons right now that get raped. But sorry, it's YouTube shitbags.
That's fine.
Sorry.
You're good. So the point that there's another thing we could talk about this side too. Now, since Trump made that as a law, not a law, it's a thing he's going to happen during his administration. So if you're a troon, you will be in a male prison. Good. Because you are a guy and that's where you should be.
That's where yes, absolutely. You can still wear women's clothes there, but you are a man.
And you'll probably get exactly what you want. Getting railed in the shower. Just saying that. You're getting the best of both worlds.
That's the other thing that's wild too, is that you've got transgender women, so men who live as women, calling themselves lesbians, trying to join lesbian communities. Now think about this. Standardly, it would be a male interested in a woman, right? The majority of the norm.
You're saying it's being straight with extra steps.
This is what I'm saying. So what kind of predator wants to invade women's spaces Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's kind of sick and demented a little bit.
But the
I
worst
don't
part
want
of it,
transgender people to be unable to play sports. I don't want, maybe we need to shift it on its head a little bit and create a brand new category. Maybe there needs to be men, women, and transgender.
Why can't they just compete in the men's sports? You compete in the sport where that's corresponding to your gender.
Yeah,
That's where you should
whatever.
be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it wasn't until Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought in 1974 or 75, fought for the rights in the Constitution to demand that all public buildings have female bathrooms. So the 70s was only 50 years ago. If women had to fight that hard to get our own bathrooms, I'm sorry, but you can't take ours from us. Get your own damn bathrooms. I'm not trying to be harsh about it, but if it makes, why would anybody want to make another person uncomfortable? And that's what I don't understand.
But I think that's a big portion right there too, is that you should make people feel uncomfortable with the truth. If someone is uncomfortable with the truth, that's not a you problem. That's a their problem. Because
what I'm referring to is the discomfort that like a mother and her 10-year-old daughter in the locker room at the local gym feels. Why would you want to walk into that space and make them feel uncomfortable and walk around with your?
You know the reason why. So they're narcissists. They're mentally insane.
And I think there's autogonophilia, which is a thing where they get off on it too. You just don't know. And I'm sorry, but if you are a genuine person that wishes or feels like they are in the wrong body, and then you choose to keep your part, like you're. I don't necessarily find that to be full on genuine. And then you go to a woman's locker room, and you walk around with your part out.
Are you saying I don't know. I agree with you.
Their man part.
Do you think they fake it to be around women in that way so they can have the aspect of like, okay, I'm Trone. I can be absolved of all consequences. I think that's another thing too.
Have you heard or read up or watched anything on autogonophilia? It's a psychological condition where a person gets off on pretending they're man, I remember there was this guy, he was a colonel in the military in Canada, maybe 20 years ago. I forget what his name is. He was like as high as you could go in the Canadian military, like crazy high colonel. And he got busted for crimes against women. Like he'd actually like hurt, SA'd and ended up like maybe 10 women and have like broke into their houses and did this off hours. He'd leave the military base. Like this is a colonel. I forget what his name is. And when they caught him, and they went to his house and looked through, like did the inspection of his house, they found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos and Polaroids of him dressed up in his wife's bra and underwear and high heels, posing. We've all seen Silence of the Lambs. The dude putting on, right? Like that's autogonophilia. I'm not saying they're all like that, because to be honest, I think Caitlyn Jenner and people in my family, I think they genuinely want to live that way. And that's great. You do you, but it should never infringe on the rights of others. That's when it becomes muddy.
And then it also shouldn't kind of negate reality itself. Like you'll have people on that side that'll literally forsake all line of logic, reasoning, and facts because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings, because they go, why would you go out of your way to hurt someone's feelings? The thing is, I wouldn't. If there was a person that is a troon and they want to live that way, that's fine. I don't care. But people have to understand that if you're a person, you should be able to hold more than one thought in your head. So no, don't just obviously go up to the person and be a complete asshole. Obviously don't do that. But if you're having a conversation with someone like that, that's different, because now we're exchanging our worldviews. That's way different. I'm not saying I would walk up to one of them and just hit them. I'm not like that. And I agree, most people shouldn't do that. That's violence. Don't do that. But people are confusing having a conversation and like speaking factually to someone, like just exchanging ideas, versus like you hate them for their existence. No, if we're gonna have an open dialogue, I'm gonna tell you, hey,
Yeah.
no, you're a dude. You're a woman. That's it. Like, am I supposed to not say how I feel because it's gonna hurt your feelings? They would have no problem offending you, calling you a bigot, calling you a
Yeah.
Nazi,
Or a racist or a Nazi, whatever, you know.
yeah.
Yes. I think it was a little bit more complex than that, because it did get to a point where initially it was not wanting to hurt feelings. And then it became actually self-preservation in not wanting to get fired, not wanting to lose your job, not wanting to get reported by the mass public, because they can be fiendish.
Yeah.
They can go, like, if you're a business owner, they can go on Yelp and just put 500 negative reviews on your business.
Yeah.
You know, they can be very, very hardcore. So it actually became a little bit multifaceted. It was a blend of not wanting to hurt people's feelings on top of not wanting your entire life to be destroyed by this fringe group that is really good at attacking people.
Yeah,
which is
and they're just
awful.
protected by the media consistently, which is so
Yes.
weird that these people claim they love women, but they want you to have a man in your sport. Or just recently in the Olympics, didn't that one person who was a guy hit the lady so hard she had to just tap
She
out?
quit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, he was a bit of a different situation, because he wasn't actually transgender. When he was born, he had two parts. So the doctors kind of said, okay, it's a female. But as he went through puberty, his male part grew more. And he
Yeah.
actually has more testosterone than he is. So when he was born, I feel bad for him, actually, because when he was born, the doctor didn't know. But the point is, any rational minded person
Mhm.
would be able to understand the unfairness of it. That, you know, yeah, I've had a tough, I mean, we've all had tough lives. Like, we've
Yeah.
all had childhoods that sucked, or, you know, like my sister had really short hair and people thought she looked like a boy growing up. That doesn't mean that she's suddenly sensitive about or can't tell the difference about unfairness in things. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel
Mhm.
like that Khalif, what is his name? Khalif?
Yeah.
Something Khalif, Aman Khalif, something like that. If I were Aman Khalif, I would recognize, you know what, I have an advantage because of my testosterone, my chromosomes, my biology, and I'm not sure it's fair for me to be. I would do that because I'm a nice person. So it begs the question why he, you know, not even that. It was the organization had already come out saying, I can't remember which one, not the Olympics, but the NAACP had already come out. Was it NAACP had already come out and said, no, he can't compete because he's a he. And the Olympics ignored those reports. Make that make sense. Like, that
Yeah.
put, I mean, all it's going to take, I mean, any man that punches a woman in the face, one punch is all it's going to take. You could kill somebody. It's going to take a woman being killed. That's what it's going to take.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
so much in the US, because you've got Trump now who's put
And
those
you have
executive orders in place. But in Canada, across Europe,
no, there was
that's
one
what
that
it's
Megan
going to
Kelly
take.
said. Oh, before we go, last few things I asked you. Megan Kelly brought it up when she went to Trump's last speech he gave before the actual voting day.
The rally, yeah.
She had said that a girl was competing against a man in a woman's sport in volleyball. She got hit so hard she was like
She's
paralyzed. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it going to take?
Yep.
More and more of those scenarios happening?
This is the problem, though. The left dispute that even happened. They just block their mind from it like it didn't even happen. No, that didn't happen. Like, it's crazy town.
You damn
I'm
bigot.
so envious of the
You want to
US
lead
that
the
you
bigot
guys have
army?
Trump.
Let's lead the bigot army. Let's do it.
I'm so envious that you guys have Trump. And to be honest, I'm envious, but yet I'm not. I'm envious, but I'm also optimistic and hopeful, because the US really does kind of lead the charge for the rest of the world, at least the Western world.
Mhm.
So, you know, the other countries will typically follow suit in their own due time. But most Canadians that I know are so envious because we've got Trudeau that is worse than Kamala. Worse than Kamala and Biden if you were to smash Kamala
They
and
do a
Biden
Dragon Ball Z
together.
fusion. If they were to do a fusion. the Goku
Yes.
Vegeta. He would just
Yeah.
make that.
It's
Well, he does have very
scary.
feminine traits. One of the cities in Canada, Montreal, was getting looted, and he's at a Taylor Swift concert. But great guy, right? Great guy.
Yeah.
Last few things I'll ask you before we have to head out, because I got to get to my other show, which is do you have anything planned coming up in 2025 you want to let the audience know about?
Well, I'm just redoing my studio here, so I've got some upgrades with the studio, and once I get going, I'm actually going to start doing Monday to Friday coverage every day, political coverage, Western world, geopolitics, that type of thing, and some pop culture stuff thrown in here and there. Not many people know, so I'll just share it with your audience now, that I did for a 2-year window. I did commentary for TMZ, which I actually left because I didn't love it. I like some pop culture, but I don't really care what celebrities do day in and day out. So, but there's some stuff that I do like dabbling in. So other than that, I think that's the plan in the next 10 months, is getting onto a Monday through Friday, every day kind of platform where I can talk about what's going on in the world. And given I'm in the UK, given I'm Canadian, given Canadians and the US are so intertwined in terms of our politics, our TV, our we've got, I know everything there is to know about American politics, which is ridiculous. I think I'm in a good place to kind of talk about all of it. So that's my plan. Plan.
Hopefully you can go over those Muslim grape gangs that have been prevalent in the UK.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to have to do a second video so we can kind of go into what's going on here, because it's just nuts. It's nuts.
Make Europe great again. That should be a
slogan. Really. Make England great. Make Britain great again. That's what needs to happen.
Last thing I'll ask you, do you have any shout outs? Do you want to get to anyone in particular, and anything else you want to say before we end the show?
No, I'm good. No, this is great. Thanks so much this has been fun. I've had a great time.
Yeah, anytime. As you guys know, she didn't follow me on Twitter, so she hates me. That's how it works.
Oh, I will right now. You know what? I will right now.
We're not Facebook best friends.
Subscribe to your channel. My channel on YouTube is at that curious _cat. That's where I am, and I will follow you on Twitter right now and blow you up and share this video, and we'll go from there. And hopefully, we'll do it again.
Yeah, anytime. Can't wait to do this later in the future, down the road this year. As you know, my wife will come in here in just a moment, and she's gonna probably grab me out to have me see her bang Tyrone. So that's probably.
Tell him I said hi.
No, God. Oh, now she's in the joke now. So thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show. We'll see you